Well, I was thinking this week was a very important, an important week in the Vaishnav calendar. You know why, right? It was Valentine's Day. Half day fasting, especially if you didn't get a Valentine's card. But it's very interesting. It was Valentine's Day. That's a big thing in the world, isn't it? And but it's very interesting. I don't know how many of you know the story behind Valentine's Day. Do you know the actual story? Because nowadays it's something very romantic, isn't it? Like a very will you be my Valentine? But you know the original story? It took place in Rome. And in Rome they used to worship like 10 gods who were they were the object of everyone's respect. And in Rome, because everyone worshipped and offered puja to those 10 gods, if anyone wanted to do anything different, they were imprisoned. There was no other religion. It was the 10 gods and that was it. So in Rome at that time, there was one very devout Christian and he couldn't give up his love for God. And so even though everything else was banned, he continued to worship God. And his name was Valentino or Valentine, or however you want to say. So he continued worshipping God even though it was not allowed. And then when the government found out, when the rulers found out, then they captured him and they put him in prison. They said, how you can profess to have some other faith apart from the 10 gods, you have to go to prison immediately. So he went to prison. And then there he was in prison, but he continued his faith, he continued his devotion. He saw that, yeah, even if God puts me in prison, everything is happening under his will. Must be something that I need to learn from this. And so he was happy. That is a devotee actually, happy in any situation. Sometimes in our life, sometimes it ends up feeling like a prison. A situation in which we can't freely do everything we want to do. But even in that situation, we should understand, yes, our bhakti to Krishna, our bhakti to God never has to stop. So he continued on. But when the jailer was seeing him every day, Valentino, in the prison, he recognized this guy is a very intelligent person, no? How did he end up in jail? So the jailer thought, let me at least make use of some of his intelligence here. So the jailer, he had a daughter. I think his name's daughter was Juha, if I remember correctly. And she was blind. And so he said to Valentino that I want you to educate her. While you're here in jail, at least you do something useful. So you educate my daughter. So he said, yeah, no problem. Devotee is ready to serve, whatever service comes. So Valentino began serving and teaching her and educating her, his daughter, the jailer's daughter. And she was very, very impressed. And naturally, when you have a teacher, then you respect everything about them. Not just what they teach you, everything. So then, inevitably, in their interaction, the question of God came about. So he could not hold back. He said, no, there is a God. And if you worship him, then he'll reciprocate with you. So she said, wow, there's a God and he'll reciprocate with me? Valentino said, yes. So then, she began worshipping God. And then one day she said to Valentino, I'm blind. And if I pray to God, will God give me sight again? And Valentino said, yeah, and God can do anything. He can achieve everything is under his control. So then she began praying, God, let me receive my eyesight back. Let me receive my eyesight back. Then one day, through the window came a bright light, and she had a mystical transformation. And the next morning when she woke up, she could see again. Miracle, she could see again. So she woke up in the morning and she was amazed. And then she spoke and her father said, wow, you can see again. And then what happened is that her father found out that Valentino had taught her about prayer. but specifically had taught her about prayer to the Christian God. So her father was very happy but unhappy. That night, Valentino found out that she had her eyesight back. So he wrote a beautiful letter to her about the power of having faith in God. And at the end of the letter, he wrote, "Your Valentine." And the next day was February the 14th, and that was the day that he was executed, because her father found out he was teaching her about the Christian God. And that's the tale of Valentine's Day. So if you actually think about it, what is Valentine's Day all about? Valentine's Day is all about faith in God, dedication to God, and ultimately love for God. But nowadays it's all about something else. Last Christmas, I gave you my heart. And the very next day, all of these things go on. Love. So everyone is looking for love. But everyone doesn't understand that anything and anyone that you try to love in this world, if you don't bring God into the center, if you don't bring Krishna in, then all of that love ultimately fails. Love has to be based on consciousness of God. And so, one time actually, one disciple of Srila Prabhupada, she came to Srila Prabhupada and she said, if I love my children and serve my children, will I then love God? Because if you love God's children, then you'll develop love for God. And Srila Prabhupada said, yes, but actually it works the other way around. If you love God, then you'll love your children in the deepest way. Because Bhagavatam says, Yathataror mulanisechanena tripyati tan skandabhujo upashaka. That Krishna is like the root of the tree. And therefore, if you give your love to Krishna, it's like watering the root. And when you water the root, then every single part of the tree, the leaves, the branches, the twigs, the flowers, every single thing becomes nourished in the process. So we have to somehow awaken our love for Krishna.